Welcome to DigitaLee, the podcast for healthcare marketers, where we look at the digital news, tools, tips, and tricks for effective healthcare communications. I'm David Schifrin with Gerard Phillips Caton Hancock, and I'm with Lee Acey, digital healthcare pioneer at Mayo Clinic and now healthcare entrepreneur. This week, we're doing something a little bit different. Lee and I talk directly about that second part of his bio as healthcare entrepreneur, and we look at the clinic that he's opening up with a longtime friend and physician. We'll, of course, talk about this, but you can learn more about Lee's clinic at healthcare.health. As you listen, don't forget to subscribe, share, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and please be sure to check out everything we've got going on from Gerard at gerardinc.com. This is the 10th conversation we've recorded, and so I wanted to do something a little bit different and give you a chance to talk about your latest venture. You have quote-unquote retired and are now full in.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Very much that, I don't know, second career or whatever. But I think it'd be really cool to hear your story and hear about what you're doing and how the lessons that you've learned over your career at Mayo Clinic and in the digital space, how that's informing what you're doing now to hopefully simplify health a little bit, or at least decomplexify it, if that's a word, and improve people's lives. So, start off by telling us, you mentioned it before, but tell us about the clinic, what it is and what you're trying to accomplish.
So I have been helping a high school classmate of mine, Dr. David Strobel, launch a new clinic in Austin, Minnesota called Help Care Clinic. And it is a direct primary care clinic, which means it's membership based. We don't take insurance. And so because of that, it's a much less complex and less costly system because we don't have to have three of me to be fighting with insurance companies over reimbursement. So it's addressing some of the things where you've got the third-party payers in between the patient and the provider. And it turns out that the one who pays the bill calls the tune. And because of that, there's just kind of a vicious cycle that happens in the regular healthcare system. And this isn't to hammer on everybody else doing other healthcare, but it's to provide an alternative and to say the brand feel that we're looking for with healthcare is Norman Rockwell meets the Jetsons. Okay, so we've actually got out in our hallway a Norman Rockwell print and a Jetsons print. And
nice.
The idea is we want to use technology where it makes sense, where it makes the patient experience better, where their patients are able to have better connections with their physician or other provider, because we do have a nurse practitioner in addition to our founding physician here. Use video visits, use phone visits. And because we don't have insurance companies in the way, we don't have to worry about whether you reimburse less for a video visit or for a phone visit, or we can even with patient permission do text messaging and have that incorporated within the medical record. So it's making that communication easier. And at the same time, having a much more leisurely feel. So instead of RVUs, we're worried about running up charges because we are getting under reimbursed by the government or insurance companies. People pay for an affordable monthly membership that gets them, then there's no per visit charge. But for someone who's got a $5,000 deductible and say even they're a family plan, this is 95% of the care they're going to need for 95% of their lives. It doesn't count against their deductible because we're not going through the insurance companies. But for most people, unless they need to be hospitalized, this is going to be giving them the care that they need at less than because the really horrible thing about health insurance is I have subsidized health insurance as a Mayo Clinic retiree, and it's still more than $1,000 a month. And that's at a 50% subsidy. And then my whole goal is to never use health care because it's all going to be out of pocket at first. So what we're doing is making insurance again. We're saying you have homeowners insurance to pay for if there's a fire or something like that so that you're not ruined. But it doesn't pay for your groceries and it doesn't pay for a lot of the other household expenses. And if you had to go through somebody else to get approval to pay for your groceries, that'd be way frustrating and complicated and expensive. And so our goal is to put nothing between the patient and the provider, where they can do what they think is best. Another little different approach that we have with this is that we are including 45 of the most commonly needed lab tests with no copay. And so being able to have the access to the labs and really radically driving down the cost of those so that we just roll it into the cost of the membership means there's no surprises for the patients. And it just makes it something where, okay, I don't have to be hyperventilating, wondering what my bill's going to be because it's already covered as part of membership. And for those who don't have insurance, so for people who have insurance and this is part of their deductible, great. We recommend that people should have insurance. It's really good for people to have insurance, but if you don't have insurance, it's way better to have a membership that covers most of your care versus having to go to the emergency department or the hospital urgent care and having something cost $500-$600 or more.
I think a lot of what you're talking about, Lee, and what works in this model is setting expectations. I mean, you're saying, here's what you get. You're telling your members, here's what you get for the price. And I think when we look at healthcare today broadly, one of the big problems is that we as consumers of healthcare don't know what to expect. And you're talking about the third party and who pays for what, who's the user, who's the patient versus who's paying for it. And there's so much confusion. There's so much confusion around explanation of benefits. They don't explain anything. Talk about, I guess, maybe that relational element of what you're doing and how you're communicating clearly with members, saying this is what you get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so, clear communication and being transparent. Transparency is a super important thing especially when you're talking about lab tests and imaging, things like that. So one of the other benefits that we have is because we don't have radiology, we can shop around and we can help people get the best combination of cash price if they're paying cash and don't have insurance, or service. I mean, if they've got insurance that would cover part of it, they can maybe get it locally and have it be more convenient. But it's what the patient's wanting, what's in the patient's best interests. Dr. Strobel would say, and this is patterned in some ways after a clinic that is owned by the Pipe Trades Union in the Twin Cities, where he has been working for the last 5 or 6 years. And our getting into this came out of a coffee discussion that I had with him, and he was telling me about this clinic where so Pipe Trades Union has a great pension plan, and the average retiree lives to collect 7 pension checks. So they work super hard. Their lifestyle in terms of diet and other stuff isn't necessarily the best. And so they said, what's wrong with this picture? Widows are getting great pensions, but our guys that are carrying the 80-pound tool belts and working so hard just aren't. And so they set this up where he has an hour per patient as the basic appointment length. They also then include the labs, and so those are some of the things that inspired what we're trying to do, because we've had some doctors say, how can you offer unlimited doctor visits? Because it's not like it's the golf course. It's not like there may be a few people that would say, I'm going to go see the doctor all the time. Yeah. And people don't want to do that. But they want to have access. So the unhurried approach, I think that's the Norman Rockwell part of it that we're talking as well, where we want to say, Dr. Strobel will say, for the first 15 minutes or so, patients are trying to decide, can I trust this provider? Is this real? And so they'll maybe bring up the thing that's a third on their list that they're concerned about, but the real thing doesn't come up right at first. But when they have a little time to actually get to know their provider and they say, yeah, I can trust this person, then you can actually make some progress. And also recognizing that in our healthcare system today, you've got pills for diabetes and for high blood pressure and for that is hypertension, but for high lipids and all that. And there's underlying causes. Mm-hmm. There are underlying issues that are behind all of those. And in the 15-minute doctor visit, it's really hard to address some of those more fundamental things. And yeah, that's what the passion is about here, is that enabling people to take more responsibility for their own health and to take charge of their own health, and understanding that what happens even in the 1-hour doctor visit, it's about what happens when you go home and your day-to-day life that's going to have a lot more effect than which particular medications are prescribed.
So if that's the Norman Rockwell side of it, let's talk about the Jetsons side of it and how you as a co-founder are using your background in technology and digital to inform what you're doing. And I think it's particularly what's relevant for a number of reasons. And part of it is simply because the old model of care is not working very well. There's a headline recently showing that, first of all, Q1 for hospitals was just brutal financially. Mm-hmm. And then there was a little bit of a rebound in, I think, April, and then the next month, another hit. It's just, and when you read these articles, patient volumes, length of stay are down. And so that really shows the limitations of fee-for-service.
Right.
Things are shifting. They need to shift. The finances need to shift. So how are you taking that background and using technology to streamline and improve care?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I worked 21 years at Mayo Clinic, the last 13 or so leading the social and digital innovation team. And one of the things we saw there was the opportunity to make knowledge available on a much broader scale without having to be face to face with people. And so one of the things you'll see right behind me is a whiteboard that we have here. And a big thing that Dr. Dave has the heart of a teacher. And a lot of the reason for the hour-long doctor visits is because he's writing on the whiteboard and showing them how things are working. And as it turns out, he doesn't say it the same every time. He's done this over 30 years, and he's got a standard way of describing metabolic syndrome and some of the other issues. And so if some of that stuff can be captured, which I can with my iPhone and my good equipment, we can produce some videos that can be something that after a visit, he can say, I did a video on this, and you can, if you watch this video, and we have them in a learning management system as well, that the patients, and actually people who aren't yet patients, we're looking to do it more as a content marketing kind of thing as well, to say, here's some health information, some educational information. It's not creating a doctor-patient relationship by doing this, but for those who do have a doctor-patient relationship, that can elevate the levels of those conversations face-to-face when some of the basic stuff can be cut outside of the face-to-face. So it is, using that technology to, especially when we can communicate at essentially zero cost through the digital tools, and it makes it just much more scalable. And that's our hope for the future as well, is that there are other frustrated physicians who don't have a friend who went back to get an MBA in healthcare management, who might be interested in saying, well, yeah, I'd like to have a clinic like that. And that's our long-term vision for my third career. This is the third career. So I had 14 years in politics and government, 21 years at Mayo Clinic in communications and digital. And now, Lord willing, if I have another 20, it'd be cool if I really feel like all of the things that I've done up to this point have really prepped and led up to being able to apply it in this new context. And we'll see where it goes.
Cool. Any, words of encouragement, lessons learned, things that you're experiencing now in this venture that would be applicable to folks who are at other types of healthcare organizations? As you said, this is one model, and we are in a transitional period in healthcare, I think, and people have different opportunities and different resources and different imperatives. What are you thinking about? What are you learning that could apply to others?
Yeah, just maintain a spirit of inquiry and being curious and interested in how could I do things differently? Because I was really happy with my work until 3 years ago when I was working at Mayo Clinic. I was really happy with that. But seeing the opportunity to apply some of these tools in a new way, from instead of a $10 billion organization, maybe a $100,000 organization in our first few months, that it gives an opportunity to just have some creativity and to figure things out. So I think and that was something that I think characterized what I did in my Mayo Clinic work, is to say, okay, let's look at these new tools and how could they be applied in a new way to accomplish this, to solve this problem that we have. And in this case, it's enabling us to create a whole new organization.
Awesome. Congrats. And
thanks.
4 months in, and good luck. So thanks to Lee for taking a bit of time to talk about his new venture. Again, you can find out more by going to healthcare.health, and we will be back in 2 weeks with sort of our normal format. So thanks to you for listening. See you then.